Well, now, I learned an awful lot from people in this room. And I learned an awful lot from reading the writings of people in this room. And I did try in my time as a justice of the High Court of Australia, the highest court in this country, and in the Court of Appeal for a decade before that, to follow Joe Kimball's rules. Give a summary of your opinion at the outset. Use short sentences. If you can, use short words. Use the active voice and do try to avoid the passive voice, which obfuscates things. Use concrete rather than abstract expressions wherever possible. Use connections, connectors, connecting phrases, adjectival, adverbial phrases at the beginning of the sentence, and use words of emphasis at the end of the sentence. And use headings. The kids at law schools love my reasons. Why do they love them? They love them because I put a lot of headings in it. I used headings, subheadings, and subheadings. And some of them, judges, would never do that, and they regard that as dumbing it down. I regard it as better communication. If they want to go to the important point that interests them, they just have to flick down my reasons and they can see it. I should say that Justice Hayden, who philosophically is at the other end of the spectrum, knows how important headings and communication are. He puts headings, subheadings and subheadings, but most of the judges disdain this. They have contempt for it. So how do we change all this? That's the real issue that I think this conference should address. For me, the three interesting subjects of your conference are, first, how do we change the attitude of hostility that exists in very high and powerful circles? I'm not sure how we do that. The second is, what is going to be the impact of the new technology on plain English? I mean, all the young people today are hooked into their technology. The X generation had 28,000 hours of television before they reached the age of 18, which was much more than they'd had hours of schooling. So they had that. Just imagine what the succeeding generations have had in internet connection, and now walking along the street or tuned in to their BlackBerry or iPhone. The new generation, and twittering as they do, Twitter isn't all bad. Twitter was very important in Burma and in Iran in stirring up and sending the messages of freedom. So it's not all bad, but it's a different mode of communicating, and it's going to be relevant to the way we communicate in the law. And the third issue that I find interesting is what gives some people an interest in and talent in this form of communication, in plain speaking. Is it genetic? You know, we're beginning to analyse, and this against a lot of resistance and hostility, judicial decision making. Business schools have been analysing business decisions for decades, but judges like to pretend that the decision is automatic, objective, and comes inevitably out of the details. Well, it would be interesting for us to study what gives some people talents in simple expression and simple communication. And is it something we can influence? Is it something we can teach? We should certainly be teaching plain English in our law schools. It's not for want of trying by Professor Eagleson and Professor Butt, but it hasn't really been a take-off success yet. However, we shouldn't give up, and we should continue the struggle to get plain language accepted for what it is, a democratic right to communicate the law in a way that ordinary citizens will understand and know what they're bound to observe as part of the law of the land. So that's all I really came to say. I think you've been a very patient audience for my 1.5 hours. It hasn't seemed 1.5 hours, has it? But I praise you all, and I encourage you all, and I know sometimes it must be discouraging, and sometimes there must be moments of triumph, but you're onto a very important issue, and it's great to see you all here tonight, even if it is ballroom number 2. We have been in very distinguished company, Professor, and please give my respects to the diamond merchants of Antwerp. Only they could afford your fee.